I want to get to the latest now on the struggling housing market. That is because for the third straight month, home prices have increased in some cities across the country.
And that's obviously an encouraging sign for the economy. So we've got CBS News and business and economics correspondent Rebecca Jarvis here with us this morning to tell us what some of these numbers mean. Rebecca, it's great to see you.
Good morning.
So what is going on now in the housing market? What's the latest?
Well, what you have is this improvement that's taking place in home prices this year. But when you look back to last year, it's still a weaker picture than it was this time last year. It's also an interesting picture when you look closer at the details because we're starting to see more regionalization. Everyone says real estate is all about location, 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 and that's finally becoming more and more true now than it was throughout the bubble, because when the housing bubble burst, everything went down simultaneously, and now we're starting to see a couple of standout cities.
So walk us through some of those where we're seeing the biggest improvements.
Yeah, where we're seeing the biggest improvements, and they're actually primarily happening in the Midwest and on the East Coast. You're seeing them in Minneapolis, you're seeing them in Chicago, Boston, and Washington, D.C. And in many cases, these are places where the jobs picture is improving, education is a big factor, and in addition to that, they're places that have fewer foreclosures than the national market, because foreclosures have really dragged things down overall.
Well, that's not, though. I mean, I think let's not overstate this, though, because as you said, there are a lot of places that aren't really on the way to recovery. What are some of the places that still are very depressed?
Well, and those are in particular places that are depressed because of the foreclosure crisis and also because of jobs and a jobs issue. So if you look at Cleveland, for example, Detroit, where we know a number of the automakers are located in Detroit, their prices are depressed there. And then the places where people went out and bought homes on spec, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Tampa, those are places that are still in a very difficult position. They are not fully recovered from this at all.
There's a lot of talk, of course, about not only what this means only for the future of home prices and for the economy, but what could be changing. And we know it's a huge concern for the Obama administration. The president is going to be speaking out, laying out his economic initiatives to stimulate growth, to stimulate jobs. As we look forward to that, is there anything that he could say, anything that's expected out of that speech that would directly fit in here?
Well, there's really two problems at the heart of the housing crisis. On the one hand, you have the jobs picture, which remains weak. That weighs on confidence. And we just saw in the consumer confidence figures that confidence now is at its lowest level in 2 years. So it has to be an addressing of the jobs picture, which we're seeing potentially could come through payroll tax cuts. It could come through infrastructure projects, school building projects. But on the other side of it, it has to look at the foreclosure crisis, because the amount of foreclosures overall has just really dragged things down. And in a normal recovery, we see housing lead us out of recession.
Right.
In this one, clearly, it has kept us very weak.
Especially with reports, too, there are more foreclosures yet to be released.
Exactly, that 1.7 million.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca. We really appreciate it.